Okay, so today we're going to talk about how to support your junior. So if you have a junior student, or maybe you're on this call and you have a freshman or sophomore and you're wondering what is coming your way in the coming years, this is really how to support your junior through the college process. I know in the past couple of weeks and months, we've been talking a lot about juniors and starting the college process and junior conferences and all the things surrounding college. So I just want to make note that if you're on this call today and you haven't had your junior conference yet, this does not replace your junior conference. This is just added information. You are, if you have one scheduled, you're still going to meet with your student's counselor. So I just wanted to get that settled. So the first theme that we're going to talk about today is organization, and that's going to be a theme that's going to run through this entire process with your student. The college process it can be overwhelming at times, but we try to help you and your student organize the process so that way it's the least overwhelming as possible. And we try to help students space things out in the process because there is a lot to do. And it is a big decision, for their future and, whatever they want to study. So you'll hear the term organization a lot throughout this webinar, but we're going to kind of always tie it back into that. So the first thing I recommend, and if you connected with us during Junior Parent Night, you may have heard a little bit about this too, is one way you can support your student through this time is having open conversation. And not even open conversations regarding college per se, but open conversations as to where they are right now. Where are they in their high school journey? Are they doing well in their courses? Are they falling behind in their courses? Do they like what they're studying? So some things obviously in high school are prescribed and they need them, whether they like them or not, to graduate. But then there's electives. Do they like the electives they're taking? Or did they think they were going to like them and now they don't? So that's going to give you a big insight into kind of where their headspace is, regarding academics in general. But it's also going to give you a leg up on if they are liking their electives that they're taking, is that something that they want to pursue or want to study in college? And what does that look like in the college research process? So having these conversations now can help inform the start of the college process. Some students may say they are just stressed and they're not sure, if they like what they're studying or if it's just school in general, and that's okay too. It's just that your college research is going to be a little bit more broad. So, the next question that organically happens is if you want to connect with them about college in general is, after having that conversation about high school and, where they see themselves now and how do they like academics is, where do they see themselves going to college? This is a helpful question because it's open-ended. It allows the student to share, what they're thinking, and they may have a dream school in mind. And if that's the case, you can have an open conversation surrounding that dream school. Again, if they say they don't know, that's completely normal for this age. And, it's a lot to think about when you're 16, 17 and you're choosing, your future path. So if they don't know, that's okay too. But then maybe, support them by asking them some of those prompting questions. Like, would you like a large university? Would you like sitting in a 500-person lecture class? How does that make you feel? So that way you can kind of get from the student where they're thinking about like environment, and that can help in that research process, even if they don't have a dream school. So that's like your starting point for research, really having that conversation, supporting the student and asking them how their high school's going, and then organically turning it into where do they see themselves going for college. And if they say they don't know, it may open a whole host of different conversations that may happen. So it may help you to understand where your student's at the moment. So if you then connect about college and what environment they're looking for, or they may say, I want to go to the warm weather, I want to go south, they may want to go away. There may be lots of ideas out there. So this conversation can also organically lead into what are the priorities of the institution that you want to go to. So even if they don't have a dream institution in mind, if they can understand the priorities that they are important to them, then they can continue to look with schools with those priorities. So priorities can range from anything. Priorities can range from academics to, it can range to the environment they want to be in. It can range from the athletics program they want their school to have. There can be lots of different priorities, but I encourage you to encourage your student to keep those priorities a little broad, because you don't want to get too many fine details and then not be able to find a correct fit for all of them. But it's a good conversation to have, to understand where the student's at, what you want, and then hopefully kind of meet in the middle. The other thing that this conversation can lead to is for many people, finances have to be considered when you're going to college. It is a big investment. And, there may be other siblings in school. There just may be so many factors regarding finances that it may be a good time before you even start the research, before you even look at any school, to have a real conversation regarding, what is a viable tuition for you and your family. This can help kind of skew the research as well, and it can help, inform you to go in which direction. Maybe that student can research all those big out-of-state schools, but maybe the student, depending on the family situation or the support system situation, maybe the student's only going to research SUNY schools. So it's a good idea to have that conversation up front so you know where you're going with the research. So those are all like the preliminary conversations before you even get to the research, but really it comes down to supporting the student, and there's that word organizing again, and organizing their thoughts and understanding where they're at right now. Some of the students may not even know what they want. So as support system, it's our job to help them understand and really ask those questions to help get out of them, what their priorities are. So if you talk to your student and ask them, what kind of school do you want? They may not be able to say, but then when you start asking more of those in-depth questions, they may be able to better articulate what they want from a school, which could help you in the research. Okay, so after you organize all of your thoughts and you get a good idea of what types of schools you want to research, then comes the fun part, all the research. So the college process can be, like I said before, can be overwhelming and stressful at times. And that's why we're trying to help students start earlier and chunk the process out. So that way they can, continue to do their schoolwork, continue to do their extracurriculars and everything else that they are involved in. So where does research begin? If you haven't already logged into Naviance, I suggest you log into Naviance. Many of your students probably have logged into Naviance. Naviance is a great starting tool. There's a lot of information in there. You can search a lot of different colleges. It has their admissions information, their selectivity, what their rate of acceptance is. It has scattergrams in there too to show you other Schreiber students, if they got in or they didn't. And it's all anonymous, but based on like GPA and test scores, did they get into that school or not? And you can kind of compare it to your student's GPA to see where your student kind of falls. So Naviance is a great starting point if you don't really know which institutions you want to go to, or your student doesn't really have an idea. It can help point you in a lot of different directions. The other thing is the researching the individual school websites. The individual school websites have a ton of information on there. And not just under the admissions tab. So if your student is interested in a particular program, encourage them to go to that website of the school. You know, a lot of the majors have their own websites for the school, and you may get a more in-depth read of what the school is like. And in today's world, a lot of things are posted on social media. So a lot of the schools will have a TikTok, a lot of the schools will have an Instagram, and a lot of times, sometimes those are run by students. So you can also get an idea of what the student body is like. So it's important to kind of do a holistic research review and helping your student understand that and supporting them through that can sometimes be difficult because it's a lot of different steps of research, but really understanding and making sure you know all of the information would be super helpful for the student. The other thing is you can call the admissions offices. The admissions offices will sometimes point you in the right direction where they can find things on the website, or they may be able to tell you, hey, a lot of prospective students check this out. And you may not know about it unless you call the admissions office. So it's always good to kind of get a pulse from the admissions office as well, because they'll be able to tell you the great resources and how students find out about their school and where their prospective students, you know, how they make decisions. So that's another good piece. So now you're helping start, you know, we're going through this whole cycle. You're helping the student start the research. So you may be researching, the student may be researching, and here comes that word again, organization. So this is a good time to kind of stop and understand what your process is like. So there's lots of different ways to organize. An organization does not look the same for every person, for every family. So you have to come up with a system that works for you and your student. Some of the systems that I've used in the past, or some of the systems that, you know, I've seen students use, is a student will make a Google Drive for a college, and they'll make all these different folders and dump all information from the different colleges into their different folders. I've also seen students make spreadsheets with like every college they've researched, and then link out to, you know, either their admission page or something that they found really interesting about the school. So there's lots of different ways to organize. Some people still print things out and put them in folders too, so they have a hard copy. That's okay too. But just make sure you're helping your student understand where the information is and how you're storing the information, so you can go back to it when you need to, because the next process is, you know, really figuring out where to apply. And all of that research that you've done, you want it to be in a place where you can kind of go back and look and make really some good decisions surrounding applications. So I really, really, really urge you to talk to your student about, you know, organization and what does that look like. And it will help them in school, it'll help them in college. But, you know, these students are getting so much from so many different places. They're already trying to organize school. They're trying to organize, you know, their extracurriculars, their resume. So if we could help them with this process, I think it would be beneficial for you and the student. So now, after you've come up with your process and you're helping the student really understand the process and, you know, all the different colleges you've researched, where do you apply? So that's really the question. Like, now, how do I make the list? Where do I apply? So there's a couple of different ways you can look at it, and you can help your student understand where the best place for them to apply is. One of them is campus tours. If you can get to the campus and step foot on that campus and show your student that campus, that's probably one of the best ways to know if the student wants to apply. They'll feel the environment, they'll see what's going on campus, they can see if they can picture themselves there. There's a lot of different, there's so many benefits to going to campus if possible. Sometimes it's not always possible to go to campus, so we're going to talk about some other options as well. So summer is a great time to travel, and the students are already off from school. So many parents, you know, think, you know, summer is a great time to visit colleges. And while it is, because students are often sometimes have less of responsibilities because they're not in school, just be aware that colleges are obviously not in session in the summer. So when you go to visit that campus, you'll see the campus, but you're not going to get the true environment and the student experience because students will be home for the summer. So just keep that in mind. So I always like to tell students if they can visit over, our school breaks, because the college school breaks are not the same as ours. Or if you can go up on a weekend, if the college is close enough, that may be more beneficial to understand the student body and what the campus really looks like, in the height of the school year. So like I said before, if there's any questions as we're going, please feel free to put it in the Q&A box and I'll get to as many as I can. So if you can't go visit the schools, and that's okay because some of them are really far, or maybe, for financial reasons, you can't go visit, whatever the reason is, there's other options. So a lot of schools have moved to virtual tours. So a lot of them on their admissions websites will offer virtual tours where you can go on and, walk through the college virtually. So while you're not there on campus, you still can get that feel of what campus looks like. And maybe you do some of those virtual tours first and then only pick a handful that you actually want to go visit. That is also another good support for students, because sometimes students will have this idea that they want to apply all over the place and you're thinking, I can't visit all these schools. So virtual tours sometimes, pare down which schools are actually viable options and which ones you should go see in person. Something else that can help, a great resource, is obviously our office, your school counselor, your student school counselor. Some of you may have talked through this if you've had a junior conference already. Some of you may be waiting for your junior conference. If you haven't made a junior conference, you still want to. There's still openings with your school counselor. So just make sure there's different ways, for the school counselor to help support you and your student through this process, whether it be recommending schools or just kind of talking to the student to see, what is a good fit for the student. So something else that I wanted to mention here is also demonstrate interest. You want to understand if the colleges are tracking demonstrated interest. And again, this goes back to that word organization. So some schools will track demonstrated interest a lot of different ways. Some of them will track it if you fill out a card at a college fair. Some of them will track it if you come on, a campus tour. Some of them will track it if you log into like one of their virtual events. But another way a lot of colleges track demonstrated interest is by their email open rate. And I know that students are getting a ton of emails. We're all getting a ton of emails. They're sometimes really hard to manage, but maybe this is an opportunity to create a new email address, a personal email address just for the college process. So that way maybe they can go in, once, twice a week until the process really gets going and, open those emails so it shows demonstrated interest. So it might be a good idea to separate the college process outside of, the current email the student has now. So that's another organizational tip that you can help support your student. And that way you're not missing any information. Sometimes those colleges send out really important information regarding events or things that may pertain to, the student. So the other thing is, figuring out where to apply also is college fairs. So you can go talk to a ton of college reps during that time. And really, so you and the student can hear at the same time, some of those questions. So, maybe a part of the organization and supporting the student is really taking those priorities and coming up with questions to ask admissions reps to get those answers to see if it's really an option for your student. So again, if you haven't heard already, the Schreiber High School Consortium Fair, which is, the big college fair, is on April 4th. So mark that on your calendars. And if you can't make it to that one, or you want to talk to even more colleges than you were able to on April 4th, the Nassau Counselors Association is doing the College Expo on April 16th, the following week at Hofstra. So those are two really great options to talk to a lot of college admissions reps at once. Again, back to that organization piece, sometimes those fairs can be very overwhelming. There's so many schools there. And there's a lot of different admissions reps. So you just want to make sure that you go in with a plan and that you talk to the schools that you are really interested in. So I can't stress that enough, because you don't know how many times I've worked with, students and families, and it is overwhelming. You walk in and there's so many, and they don't really get to talk to the school they want to because they didn't go with a plan. So help your student figure out, after all that research you've done, maybe you've went on some virtual tours, maybe you're not ready yet to go to that campus, but maybe the college fair is a good start on talking to those admissions reps. So that was a lot of information regarding, research and how to support them, and how to support them with different resources, and how to figure out where to apply. But what are some of the other factors that are running parallel to while we're doing all the research that students also need to be aware of and keep in check? Standardized testing is one of them. So a lot of, we have seen the trend this year that a lot of schools have gone test optional. And that's a great option for many of our students, but we're still recommending to sit, unless you and your student have had a conversation, and you're only going to apply test optional schools. And, if there's a school out there that has a test, not for you, then that's another story. But we are recommending that students sit for at least one ACT or at least one SAT, so they do have a score on their record. So that way, if they apply to a school that all of a sudden needs a score, they're not unable to apply to school, or they're not taking an SAT or ACT for the first time deep into the fall of their senior year. So just something to think about, something to talk to your student about. They may be talking to peers, they may be talking to teachers, they may have an idea of which one they want to take, but we do recommend sitting for at least one, so that way every student does have a score and they are eligible to apply to any school they want to, if they need a score for that school. Letters of recommendation is also another process that we have to, talk to our student about and support. And I know letters of recommendation, like all of these other things, are mentioned in junior conferences, but really figuring out, who they're going to ask for their letters of recommendation. So brainstorming with the student, figuring out which teachers know them best. Core teachers, a lot of colleges want to see at least one core teacher. We recommend the student getting 2 letters of recommendation in addition to the school counselor. Their school counselor is always going to write a letter of recommendation, but we do recommend they get 2 letters of recommendation. So helping the student figure out what the best option is and who the best option is to ask, and who you maybe think knows the student the best, and have that open conversation. Sometimes students don't even realize that they went through something with this teacher, and this teacher may write a really awesome letter of rec, but from your point of view, you see that, but maybe the student doesn't see that. So really getting on the same page as your student and helping the student understand that. Something else to support your junior with is starting to think about senior scheduling. The colleges will see what is on their schedule for senior year. So understanding on how to keep that rigor up, how to continue in the classes that they're already, on track to continue with, and really making sure that that senior year schedule is still pretty strong. Because the college process is not over once they step foot, in here senior year. It's actually just starting the application process. So we want to make sure that those senior year schedules are still filled with rigor, where the colleges are looking at them. If the student hasn't thought about their personal statement, this would be another good thing to kind of help brainstorm them with. The colleges are looking for unique and really student voices. And what can the student talk about that they're super passionate about, that it's unique, and helping the student just brainstorm. Sometimes students, sit with us and they think that some of their experiences are not unique, but they actually are. So helping the students understand, things that they're passionate about, and having the student be able to write about something that they want to write about. is super helpful because they'll write a great essay. And just to remind them that it's only 650 words. So it's not a super long essay. They've probably written a longer essay here at Schreiber, but something that is going to stand out and an admissions rep is going to remember. Just reminding the student that there's always an option on the Common App for choose your own topic. So I wouldn't, the student can really think outside the box and really write about anything that they want. Another good conversation to have even before the college applications start rolling out is if the student would like to go early decision, early action, or regular. So the college process always unravels the way it's supposed to. And, plans could change, but it's probably a good idea to start talking about it. Early decision is the ones where students apply early, and then that decision is binding. So if the student gets in, the student is going, they withdraw all their other applications. Sometimes they don't get to see their financial aid package before they have to accept. So it's really that you are committing to going either way. Early action is similar but different in the fact that it's not binding. So you still apply earlier, you get your decision earlier, just like early decision, but early action is not binding. So you can wait all the way till May 1st to give that college an answer, and you don't have to withdraw any other applications. So our students tend to really like early action because it gives them that flexibility to understand where they're at earlier in the process, but then give them that flexibility to really understand the scope before they commit to the school. And then there's regular decision, and plenty of our students apply regular decision as well. That's more like January, February deadlines. And students apply regular decision for various reasons. Sometimes they're not ready by early decision, early action. Sometimes they, do early decision, early action, and then maybe get, don't get in everywhere that they want, and they add more schools during regular decision. So that's what I mean when the college process, you should go in with a plan and have that conversation with your student that, are any of those options or which ones they're thinking about applying through. But the college process will unravel as it goes. If your student, something else to talk about is if your student is planning on playing a sport in college, having them register with the NCAA clearinghouse, and really discussing with your student, again, having that open conversation of, what division are they thinking of playing, Division 1, 2, and 3, and what does the commitment look like from the student on that side. So that way they're able to really understand, what they're signing up for or what they're going into. And I know we're just about out of time, so we always encourage, regular check-ins with the counselors, and we can help support you and the student in any way through the college process. And just two quick things before we end today. If you haven't had your junior conference already, but are signed up for one, you still attend. This was not to replace that. But also, if you haven't signed up for a junior conference, there's still openings. So, you were sent an email with all those calendar links. So find your counselor and make an appointment. The other thing is if your student is not part of their counselor's Google Classroom, they can find QR codes right outside the main office for each counselor's Google Classroom. And that's a way to keep up to date with the process, and they'll get notified through the Google Classroom for different things. So I thank you for joining me today, and I hope you learned how to support your junior at the start of the college process. Have a great day.